Hello everyone. Before we get into these three fantastic books that I want you to check out, I want to remind you that I have horror books for sale. They're only $1 each, and you can find them at the link in the description. And also don't forget to check out my Read More Horror t-shirt. Many colors and sizes and all that good stuff available. And again, there's a link in the description for that as well. All right, let's get your TBR pile ready. So the first fantastic book I want to talk about today is called The Rules of the Road by C.B. Jones. He has another book coming out earlier or sometime this year, I believe sometime this month. This one is from a couple years ago, but it's the first time I've heard of it. It was recommended to me on Twitter, or if we're calling it X now, whatever that is. And whatever you want to call it, that's where the recommendation came. And sometimes people ask, do you ever purchase a book that somebody recommends on social media? And I'm like, yeah, all the time. So if you have any and you have social media, be sure to spread the word far and wide about the books you love, because you never know who's going to be interested. But this book is fantastic because it starts out, it appears like it's an anthology of connected stories at first. Because you have all these different people, and all these different stories about these people, but they're all connected by this strange, creepy radio broadcast that seems to be playing specifically for them. And a man experiences this broadcast one day, and this announcer, old Buck there, he gives people a rule of the road. And you have to follow that rule while you're on your travels, or else bad things will happen, including death. You could die if you don't follow these rules, according to him. And so this man receives his rule. He, as weird as it is, he does what the rule tells him to do. But he's curious about this broadcast. Where did it come from? Why is he the only one that heard it? And so he just makes a blog and tells people, hey, do you know anything about this broadcast? If so, let me know. And he starts getting phone calls and emails and messages and Skype calls from different people who know exactly what he's talking about, because apparently this happens to many more people, and they thought it was just them personally. But come to find out, it's happened a lot. And every time somebody receives one of these signals, this announcer, Buck, he always starts out with something. He's a down home country kind of voiced guy, and he starts out with cryptic messages for these people specifically, it seems like. And then he goes on to, hey, and now this is the rule of the road. And these things can include everything from what to do if you see a single shoe on the side of the road, to what to do if a semi-truck tries to pass you on the highway, to what you should do if you see a certain man with a certain dog begging for money somewhere. And if you don't follow these rules, if you heard this broadcast and don't follow these rules, horrible, terrifying things are going to happen to you, including you could die in some bizarre, very horrific manner. And we're going to hear stories of people some who followed the rules and some who did not. And we're going to hear about these terrible things that have happened to them if they didn't. And and that would be great if that's all this book was, this anthology with this connection. I'd love that kind of thing. I love those kind of anthologies where everything is kind of connected, telling different stories. But at the end, it's going to become even darker, because we are going to find out who this strange broadcaster was. We're going to find out why he gave those specific rules that he was giving in all these stories. And and this man, this blogger, just becomes obsessed with tracking down this broadcast and this guy who's broadcasting, and figuring out what's going on. And he kind of descends into a bit of madness there. He kind of loses his mind because of this obsession. So yeah, that really tied all these stories together wonderfully, I thought. I absolutely love this book. Like I said, I love those anthologies with connected stories, but then he added that little extra at the end there to tie it all up, and I really appreciated that. So I highly recommend it, and there is a link down below where you can purchase your copy of The Rules of the Road on Amazon. And next we have Secondhand Rose by Deborah Fox. This is a novella, so this one's shorter. It's not going to take you long to read. But this is really her first foray into the horror genre, and man, she just came out banging there. This is about a woman named Abigail. Her grandmother owns an antique shop. Her grandmother's name is Rose. Her grandmother owned an antique store in a little town called Friendship. But her grandmother passed away. She's inherited this antique store. She decides to move there and spruce it up a little bit, modernize it somewhat, and make it a success in honor of her grandmother. But ever since she was a kid, her grandmother had in this antique store a big, heavy wardrobe that she was told never to go near, never to open for some reason. It just kind of sat there. But now that she owns the shop, she is curious. She tries various ways to try to get it open, but this thing seems to be resistant to them all. She can't find a key. She tries a screwdriver. She tries a crowbar. Nothing seems to work. But eventually that thing will open. Because this town of Friendship seems like an idyllic little burg. Everybody gets along. It seems to be prosperous. Everybody's happy. But there's a reason for that. There's a deep, dark secret hidden in this town. Something that lives there that the townspeople have kind of nurtured throughout the years. They've kind of given over to this thing throughout the years in order to have this happiness and prosperity the town offers. But it is very brutal and very vicious. And this book is going to feature some horrific scenes of how this creature, this thing, this demon, whatever you want to call it, how it works and operates, and it needs to eat. It is always hungry. And of course, human flesh is its meat of choice, let's put it that way. And this book features one of the best dogs you're ever going to meet, man. I'm a big fan of anybody that includes dogs in their stories and makes them kind of a character, and this dog is going to be integral to the story later on. I'm not going to give away why, but even this dog has a secret. I'll just put it like that. And this dog is he's going to be the hero of this story eventually, and you are going to love that. Let me just put it that way. And she wrote this book, I understand, because she actually had a dog, and when her dog passed away, she was grieving, obviously, for the loss of her companion, and she channeled all that into this novella. And that's a fantastic thing, and it's a wonderful book. It's just, it's full of blood, it's full of gore, it's got the scares, it's got the small town secrets, and of course, the heroic dog. How can you go wrong with that? So yeah, Secondhand Rose is one I highly recommend. And again, there is a link in the description where you can purchase your copy. And next we have another novella. This one's a bit longer, but it still shouldn't take you too long to read. And this one has a fantastic premise, and it's very different than what you might expect from a horror novella. This is called Last Stop Ground Floor by David Wilson. And basically, hell has rules, as we are going to come to know. This is about a man named Nick. Nick finds himself at the beginning of this book in an elevator going down. He's not aware of where he is or who he is really, or why he's in the elevator. But once the doors open, he finds himself in these wooden tunnels, wooden passageways that seem to go on forever, and he's met by a man named Jeffrey. And we're soon going to learn that Jeffrey is none other than Jeffrey Dahmer. So obviously Nick is in hell, and he's there for a very good reason, because he was a convicted mass murderer. He committed a school shooting that left many children and adults dead, and he was sentenced to death, and after his execution he woke up in that elevator in hell. But this book is basically about him and Jeffrey walking these halls seemingly forever, where time doesn't matter. There is no such concept as time. And Jeffrey is giving him these rules of hell, because hell does have rules. But basically it amounts to this. Everybody down there suffers horrific torture over and over and over again. They are killed in these horrific manners, and they are awake for the whole thing to feel every bit of that pain. And when they're not being tortured, these tortures for everybody comes in cycles, and they don't know when it's going to happen. But when they're not being tortured, they are just left in a locked room, small room, by themselves, and they can never have any comfort. They can never have any joy. They can never talk to another human being once they're locked in those rooms. So it's a mental torture too, because they never know when their next cycle is going to happen, but they remember every bit of pain from their last one, and so it could happen at any time. And they are just sitting there being mentally tortured, and then when it's their time, they are being physically tortured. And Jeffrey is going to tell him about different rules and how his torture could be even more increased if he breaks these rules. And along the way, we are going to hear about some of the bloody, gory, terrifying ways these people get tortured. And there's going to be some familiar names in this book. You know, you're going to have the Hitler, you're going to have the Mussolinis, you're going to have the Stalins. You know, you're going to have you know, people like Jim Jones and other cult members. You're going to have just all kinds of people, serial killers and you know, rapists and murderers and all that, because those are the people that wind up in this particular level of hell. So it's almost like a Dante's Inferno set in modern times. And that's basically really all this book is these two walking, as Jeffrey explains about these rules and about how the tortures are going to work and everything. But it's very bleak, it's very dark, and it's very effective. I mean, there's, you know, this author comes from a law enforcement background, so his views on the rehabilitation and the prison system comes from a place of knowledge. You know, not just his opinion, but from experience. And while you might not agree with all of the philosophies he puts forth through Jeffrey's character, you know, it still makes you think. It's one of these books that really brings home how sadistic and horrible humanity can be to one another. And but like I said, it's still entertaining, because you are getting these visions of hellish, horrible torture in the most foul, vile, dreadful ways. And so it's a very effective book that'll have you think. And I think if you read it, you and a friend maybe you have a book club and maybe you want to read it as a group, I think it's going to bring us some very interesting discussions about some of these subjects. And the fact that we're dealing with real life people and real life situations, things that are actually happening today, really brings home that horror, I think, because this isn't some abstract something that is just made up. I mean, these things actually happen in our time, and we as a society have to figure out if what we're doing for punishment, is it really justice or is it not? So it brings us some very interesting debates. And plus, it's just an overall fantastic novella. I absolutely love this one, and I highly recommend it to you. Last Stop, Ground Floor. And again, there's a link in the description where you can purchase your copy. And as always, I want to say thank you for taking some of your time and spending it here with me. I really appreciate you guys when you watch my videos, man. And until we meet again, keep reading spooky, my friends.